Another episode of Feeding Fatty. This is Roy.
This is Terry.
So we are the podcast. Of course, we are chronicling our journey through this wellness, through eating better, exercise, getting more exercise, reducing stress, all those great things that we need to do in order to live a more, happy, fulfilled, healthier life. And so also, too, from time to time, we have guests on, and after the morning we had to make an emergency phone call to Elizabeth, and I'm gonna let Terry introduce her.
Yeah, Elizabeth Cristofano sets out to inspire women as a functional medicine certified health coach, specifically women over 40, to take back their life and vitality by getting to the root cause of their overall health. Health and wellness has been in Elizabeth's world for the last decade and has evolved as soon as she turned 40. Elizabeth started building her own business in her 40s and offers her services as a health coach to help high-achieving and high-performing entrepreneur females 40 to 60 years old. She's the host of an alternative and wellness podcast called The Root of Our Health, which ties in with her mission of changing behaviors by empowering entrepreneurial women. You are worth it is her motto. Elizabeth, thank you. Oh my gosh, do we need you today? Yeah. We need you always, but especially today.
Yeah,
today is not good.
Today it was funny because I know you like to talk about stress, and then before the show we were talking about, I think we all had a rough week, and then for some of us this morning it started off just where we left off yesterday. So it's like, okay, let's deal with this stress so we don't ruin the rest of our day and we don't ruin the rest of our health and wellness.
Yeah, no, and I, like you said, it started out that way. So mine did too. Yeah. It was such a week, such a hectic, exhausting week that, I think it is spilling into the day today. But, we have the control over it. It's how we could not only talk to ourselves, but switch that mindset of, yes, we're having a crappy morning, but you know what? We have the rest of the day. So how are we going to spend it?
Yeah. So, yeah. I'm going to mute.
How are we going to spend it?
I'm going to mute Terry so she can't jump in here. But yeah, for the last, 30 minutes or an hour, it's just been terrible. And, I think that same thing. I think, I don't want this to ruin the rest of my day. I've got other stuff because, when it seems to just have piled on. And so what I want to do when it piles on like that is, of course, I just want to sit down and find something to eat. And that is not the way to handle that. And so, that's part of what we are, or I'm going to say me, that's part of what I'm working on is trying to figure out, okay, this has happened. I can't go back and change it. It's going to mess up the trajectory of my day and probably the weekend. So, how to deal with it. One thing I have found is that's interesting is sometimes when we go through these, it happens for a reason that we come out on the other end and we're like, oh, okay, I'm better off than I probably would have been had things happen the way I went. But as we're going through it, that is just difficult. That's not an easy thing to think about.
Yeah, no, and you're right. It's like, going through it, you're wondering, well, what the hell is going on? Why am I doing this? Yes. Why am I feeling this? And sometimes you just surrender to like the foods and surrender to things because you're so freaking tired. And you're so like, you're just wanting to, get away from that pain, really. Right. So that's what happens is when we get stressed, we're not thinking clearly. We're just surrendering to whatever is coming up in our lives. And it's tough. It is tough. And now your outlook though of, getting out at the other end, seeing a different light of, the reason why it happened, that's a good outlook. A lot of people don't even have that. A lot of people have this like, oh, well, it happened to me. It happened, and it's just a loss. But understanding, things do happen in our lives, whether stressful or great, that, sometimes you got to go through that pain to understand the good. Yeah. So, yeah.
Yeah, and it's when you're in the moment, it's hard
hard to recognize.
Yeah,
that.
now once I kind of came through and it took a couple deep breaths, and that's something I've learned too is over the last month or two, we've done the Reiki, I can't say, whatever it is. I'll let Terry say that, whatever that word is. We've done that. We've tried to do more meditation, have some quiet time, even just for a few minutes to be more one. And so, realizing what's going on, taking 4 or 5 deep breaths to try to, rebalance and recenter is good. But what, I guess one thing that's frustrating for me, and it's my own fault because I have so much that needs to be done, but it's like, okay, I really didn't have time to do stuff that I need to do today, tomorrow, and the next day. So now I'm going to take 4 things I should have been doing or needed to do today, and I'm going to push them out to days when I didn't have enough. So that some of that is self-inflicted. I get that. But then on the other hand, it's like, it's things that need to be done. And it's not, it's not like a choice. Like, I was going to paint a fence today and say, okay, well, I'm just not going to do that. I mean, these are, to me, they're critical deadlines that just have to be met. And there's no, the only way to do that. And then this is where I really go out of control, because then the next thing is the eating. Then the next thing is staying up till 2 a.m. trying to get it done. And then you're tired, and then you want to eat. I want to eat more for fuel to wake me up anyway. It's a bad cycle to get into.
Cycle.
Yeah.
It is a vicious cycle, but let me ask you a question. Are these tasks like the hard tasks that you don't want to do? Are these, or are these things that you find fun?
If things went right, it's fun. It's when things start to go bad, it's when they become not fun and become drudgery. And then I have to admit, then you wake up the next day kind of all balled up like, what's gonna happen today? And then it's like, do I even want to start down this path and like get hit in the head with somebody throwing rocks at you when I could just not do anything? But that's not an option. I mean, it's stuff I've got to do. So,
so both.
So both.
Yeah.
Both. The reason, and the reason why I asked is because that's our default. When we have hard things, we have a to-do list, right?
All right.
And we have these very hard things, or it's not even hard, but it's like things that are, if we have a creative mind and these are just like the processes and the things that we're not loving to do, we tend to kind of put them off just because obviously we don't love them.
Yeah.
But what ends up happening, obviously, is it just like goes and goes and goes. Okay, I'll do that tomorrow. And then we procrastinate.
Yeah.
And then until, like you said, that last minute that you really, truly need to get it done because it's a deadline, then you're stressed out. Then you're like eating, trying to stay up because it is a deadline.
Right.
But from what I've learned is that doing those hard things or doing the things that you don't like to do first.
Right.
To get them out of the way.
Yeah.
And yes, sometimes, like you said, things could go wrong, and it has, especially if you're, doing something that's technology bound. It's like something something can go haywire, and all of a sudden that 1 hour that you put on your calendar for that one task is now 2 or 3 hours.
Yeah.
That gets frustrating, right?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
And that is I think that's what kills me more than not wanting to do stuff. Because like I said, if I could just do it and work through it, I'm really good with that and I don't mind it. But what happens is, we can use today as an example. We woke up at 7 o'clock. I thought
that's the worst.
Yeah, this morning I was thinking, oh my gosh, we might get to sleep in a little bit. But,
that's what I was thinking.
We get a call from the Amazon delivery guy, and then while I'm up trying to sort this out, they just throw the package out at somebody else's house. So now I've spent 30, 45 minutes on the phone dealing with them. Not going to get the thing. And then, of course, we had some technical issues trying to even get this call up again. Then it just, it's frustrating because I hate to waste our guest time. And that is my, I don't like to waste our time, and we're tight scheduled. But man, when it bubbles over and affects somebody else out of my sphere, then, that I hate that, because I know that your time is valuable, and you're very gracious. You haven't fussed at us. Let me make that clear. You came on with a smile and did everything you needed to do. But I'm just saying, it's just, and the good news is, I think we can say this now, is that, we were having some terrible internet issues for the last, month and a half, where, we actually had a few episodes that we just had to quit taping mid conversation because the quality was terrible. So anyway, we finally got a new cable placed in the house, and we got it turned up last week. But then again, it's had consistent problems, every day. When it works, it's awesome, but when it doesn't, then AT&T wants me to spend an hour or two on the phone with them trying to troubleshoot, and so that just I guess it just starts compounding, with people. And it's not that they want my time frivolously. It's just that they need my time, which is fine. But it's like I had zero time in my calendar today to mess with Amazon and to mess with AT&T. It's like those just weren't even on my radar, and now they have taken over my entire morning so far.
Yeah, and that's the thing. It's the external, for lack of a better word, crap that comes your way. It's like you weren't expecting that. It's something that, okay, now you just woke me up out of the, of something that I was trying to relax.
Right.
So that external stress just came at you, and of all things, it didn't even turn out right. So if you got the package, then I can see it being like, okay, well, it was for something, but it was for nothing.
Yeah.
And then you still have to contact them to reorder, I'm sure.
Yeah. And
I mean, I've been there, and I think that's the other thing that we were talking about off camera, was that, I actually ordered two things, and those two things said attempted delivery. Well, now I have to, and I did already twice, go back out to redeliver, and they redelivered and still said attempted.
Oh my gosh.
Delivered somewhere else.
Stupid post office. But I'm just saying, I get it.
Yeah.
I get it. It's like those things to where you have a lot on your plate, you have your schedule full, and all of a sudden these outside stressors come to you.
Yeah.
And it's like, I can't deal with you people.
Yeah.
Like, you guys are just ruining my day, ruining my world, and it's frustrating. And but how are you dealing with it? Like, are you using your meditation at all for this? Are you?
Well, it was
a different kind of meditation now.
Yeah, I was more using my Tourette's, I think, at the time. Yeah, well, the reality is it was still bubbling over, like, right when we were getting on this call. So that's part of the deal, is I just haven't had time to deal with it. And, what I will say at this point is, like, when you actually start verbalizing this, then you become like, oh my gosh, you mean I'm wasting my time even thinking about this? Because, it's like, it's kind of like it's like, really, is that the worst problem? I mean, there's people that are sick. There are people that have financial issues. There are people that are in accidents, or, there's all kinds of mayhem going on in the world. And
you're worried
I'm
about
all frustrated about my Amazon package didn't get here.
Yeah, and then you start thinking about the guilt. All these other people are going through all this stuff, and then the guilt piles on. I don't know if that's the mom thing or that's the dad thing. I don't know what that is.
It's just a thing, because I'm old enough to remember when you actually had to get in the car and go to a store to buy stuff. And so now I'm like, okay, well, I was too lazy to get in the car to go buy this thing, so I ordered it for delivery, and now I'm worried that I'm not gonna get it for 24 more hours. That's so
on demand. We just want everything on demand. We want it right now, drive-through service.
Yeah, and again, when you're going through that, you don't think about it, but having a minute to take a break and really, talk with y'all two, then it's like, oh my God, this sounds so corny. but I'm sure there are other people that are going through it as well.
No, and it's the times, right?
Right.
And that is why stress is like huge. It's a huge epidemic now. It's because we want everything now.
Yes.
Right.
And no matter, I'm Gen X as well, so I know all about, the hard time, not the hard times, but just the times where we actually had to pick up a phone that's in your house, and you didn't have a cell phone. You didn't have these things delivered to you.
Right.
You actually had to go out, and especially I'm from, Chicago, in the snow, tracking in like 4 feet of snow. Not really, I'm being dramatic, but just picture that. Just picture like the kids and people nowadays trying to do what we were doing back then.
All right.
But but it switches your brain like that too. It's the like you said, on demand. Give me now. Give me now. I want it now. And when you don't have it, it's like, oh, that's it. My life is over.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So there's one thing I wanted to mention, not to kind of keep going on this, but you mentioned that, our problems aren't really, big problems, like of the world.
Right.
Like there's a lot of people suffering. There's a lot of people kind of go through difficult things. I was just listening to a podcast, and it was one of these, I don't know if you heard of Tim Ferriss, but
oh my gosh,
podcast.
Love him. I've been on a kick this week.
Right. Okay, good. So I don't know if you heard this one, but it was with I don't know his name offhand, but basketball player. So he's a big time basketball player, and he just mentioned that, when you throw, because we're all complainers, right? We all complain. So when you throw your complaints on the table and you have everybody else share their complaints, you quickly like, oh, I'm going to take this back.
Right. Exactly.
It's like that, what you guys are going, it's like, 10 times worse or 100 times worse. And if we're not comparing, but it's understanding that, you know what, we got it good. We got it good. So it's more or less like getting the energy out of what we're feeling, and then being like, okay, I'm done.
Yeah.
Then we can go on. But
Yeah, I think that's it's like I guess now I feel like I've thrown my tantrum, and I'm gonna try to pick up and move on. Terry didn't have to.
Good. Yes, let's.
Terry didn't have to pick me up off the floor and say, "Hey, quit throwing your tantrum. We're moving along here."
We all do it.
But I read something that was really it was really to put things in perspective the other day, because it was I guess it was a lady that was just talking about how these seniors this year have had it so bad and all of this stuff that's gone on, and they miss their dances. And I get that in a senior, when you're that age in that world, it's a big thing.
Yeah.
But then somebody replied to her, is like, well, I was telling my husband about this, and he said, well, yeah, but, for those of us that graduated from 1964 to 1970, our senior trip was to Vietnam. Mm-hmm. And so I was like, wow. That
slammed everything.
Perspective.
Exactly,
Yeah.
Yeah, just trying to find perspective is, and when you're going through it, like you said, you don't really think about sitting there and just being with the issue, and just being with it. It's afterward when you're like, oh, well, I just wasted all that time. And then you think, oh my God, I just wasted all that time. So what now? Now I'm mad that I wasted the time thinking about it.
Well, there's a reason for that.
Okay, what is it, Elizabeth?
I'm going to tell you the reason. So what happens when we're stressed out like that is it's called the amygdala hijack. So what happens is your amygdala is the one that processes all the information, stress response, stuff like that, like all of these, just basically your smart brain, your smart area, right? And what happens is it just shuts down. So you don't think clearly when you have, when you're either angry or just stressed out or something like that. And then what happens is your cortisol levels go up, your adrenaline goes up. So when your brain shuts down and your adrenaline goes up, that you're not thinking properly. You're just going through what you want to get achieved at that moment.
Right.
Right. And, you know, it's like from a long time ago, this is what happens, the fight, flight, or freeze, like really the fight or flight. It's from the olden times, the Paleolithical times, where saber-toothed tiger runs after you. What are you going to do? Either you're going to fight it or you're going to flee, you're going to run. So that is where now the saber-toothed tiger is our stressors, like that Amazon guy is your stressor. So you're fighting it. You're putting all your energy in fighting this one stress. And so your amygdala is shut down and you're not really thinking clearly until it just, you know, you rest then. You're calming down after. And then you're like, oh, okay, I should have said this. I shouldn't have done this. Blah, blah, blah.
Right.
So that's what's happening is when you have that stress response versus that rest and digest, it's kind of like you're doing, you're going, your action, and then you're actually thinking about it afterwards.
So what can help us slow our roll, though? Or is there anything that can, help us from going from 0 to 60 and then spending that time going through that and then trying to come back down? I mean, because that's what I was thinking earlier is just, if I could have just not launched on these things, but it's like, it was like multiple things. It's just like kept coming. And, it's like that, and then that doesn't help. That escalates it, because then I'm thinking, not only am I thinking about these issues to deal with and process and figure out, but then it's like, okay, well, I had these other 4 things on my schedule this morning that I am not addressing at all. So that's I think, for me, that's what I want to figure out is just like recognizing that in the beginning, and maybe I should have done it. Maybe I need to be more conscious of that emotion climbing and just say, okay, I got to step away, sit down, and just do my little 10-minute, meditation or breathing.
Well, you said it right there. I mean, it's not easy.
Right.
I mean, we all go through it just because it's piles up, you get overwhelmed, and it's like, I have this, and you're thinking in the future, right? You're thinking, you're going through your present, turmoil or stress, and you're thinking of what's happening, how is this going to affect the future?
Yeah.
And that's even causing more stress, right?
Yes.
So you just mentioned, stepping out of it, of getting into maybe breathing.
Right.
Breathing. So when we breathe, we kind of, slow it down. It's easier said than done. People think, oh, I breathe every day, but when you get stressed out, what happens? You don't.
Right.
Your breathing is shallow, or you don't breathe. So yeah, stop and when you're talking to that guy or or female or whomever, as they're talking, instead of thinking about it, kind of be mindful of how you're reacting to it. And then taking a deep breath while they're talking, whatever they have to say, and then kind of address the issue.
Yeah.
So that's, it's being mindful of the situation before it takes control of you.
Yeah.
Again, it's easier said than done, but practice, we have to practice it. That's all.
Well, and Roy, you are really, I have to give you kudos, because you are really good at helping me recognize when that is happening to me. And it happens a lot, because I just, especially with technology, I just do not have a technological brain at all. And I want it to work like it should. Like I think it should.
Yes.
But you, I mean, you are always, okay, take a deep breath, step back, let's evaluate the situation. You need to be kinder to yourself and maybe offer yourself a little grace in that process.
Yeah, it's hard, but I think it's like eating, or it's like I think we talked before about that one time that I just I was working, and then I hate to say woke up because I was awake, but it's like the realization came up that, I'm standing here at the cabinet with my hand in luckily it was chickpeas, it wasn't chips, but I'm standing here with my hand in a bag of something. Do I really need that? And so I think that mindfulness or being in tune with yourself translates into these situations is, you kind of have to feel yourself in that escalation and try to, the sooner we can get to it, the better off we are to mitigate it, instead of, letting it get to the point where I was a while ago, just totally out of control, because then it's a lot harder to make that turn. And then the other thing I was going to say is that, I got some good advice one time from my priest, and we were talking about the mindset and stuff, and he just said, look, it's our choice our mind is a grinder, and it's our choice of what we grind. And it's a good analogy. So what I'm trying to think of now is, like, instead of grinding on this Amazon and AT&T thing all day, I've got to somehow get past that and think about all the other great stuff that's going on, the other opportunities and things like that.
Focus on the good stuff.
Yeah, no, that's exactly it. You hit it on the head, because it's how you think, determines how you feel and determines your action.
Right.
So if you keep thinking the negative, and being angry and all of that, it's gonna go throughout your day, and it's gonna also, whatever you touch or whatever, things happen, they're gonna be negatively. So you know what I'm saying? Like, say for example, you're still going, right? You're still, kind of, on that stressed moment. And then after this call, you're still stressed. Well, what do you think is going to happen? Things are going to stay stressful for you, because that's what you're thinking. What
right,
you think,
right.
you attract. So you're going to attract stressing, situations, and you're just going to be like, oh my God, this day just sucks.
Right.
That's it.
Right.
But yeah, no, your priest was right on, and having, and it's kind of like pulling yourself outside of that situation, and kind of looking at it in a different perspective, and like kind of overhead, and seeing, like kind of an out of body experience, like
right.
seeing what you're, how you are, how you're clenched up, how you're physically, how you're speaking, how you're mentally. And then it's kind of like, okay, well, I don't have to be this way.
Yeah.
And doing, like you said, that choice. So, yeah.
Yeah. And the other thought is about the wasted time. And this is what I'm going to try to think of next time. It's like, I can waste this hour or so, being upset, and then, kind of have one of these revelation moments where it's like, well, in the scheme of life, it's really not that big a deal, and we can't change it, so there's no use worrying about it. It's done. Let's move forward. Trying to think that earlier in the event, because then it's like, we don't have to waste, there's no use wasting that time being upset, but I could feel it, like it just starts in your stomach. And so many people say everything, most 80% of our stuff starts in our stomach. I could feel it starting there, and it just like rushed up, through my chest and into my head. You could just feel the pressure, it's just like a pressure cooker of boiling water, I guess.
Yeah, physically.
Yeah.
Feel, tensed up. Yeah.
So then you have to think about, how it affects Terry, because she's sitting over here, 6 feet. So I know that she was like, oh my God, do I need to run and climb a tree? What am I going to do here? But then, also those poor people on the, now the lady on the Amazon, I was pretty nice to her. I'm like, well,
you were very nice.
I told her, I said, tell your driver to get it right, and that way you don't have to talk to crazy people like me.
I know. Well, that's a good thing, knowing that she couldn't really. It's not her fault.
Yeah. And that's the unfortunate part is, most of the time we tend to take it out on people that are closest to us, or that really can affect it. I mean, they can't. So anyway, trying to recognize that earlier, so you just don't have to go through all this, because I can only imagine, like, what does that do to our insides?
Yeah, you've been doing good segue.
Yeah.
You mentioned adrenal glands. You just did a 4-part series on your podcast.
Yeah. So it does physically, in your body, it does a lot to you. So the reason why I bring up adrenals and actually more specifically adrenal fatigue is because that is what I actually went through 2 years ago. I mean, I'm a high stress person. It is what it is. I'm, type A, control freak, all of that. So I'm a high stress person. So what I'm teaching, usually I need to learn, right? That's what you tend to do.
Yes.
You tend to teach what you really need to learn yourself, and going through the process, going through, all of these things. So yeah, 2 years ago, I was going, I don't know basically I put a lot of stress on myself. So it wasn't as if, there was outside stressors. I was trying to get a business going, and I was putting a lot of stress on myself. And it was at the same time when, I was like, I was 41, and I just started getting bloated and getting irritable, crying all the time, yelling at my husband, and just overall, and like my face was puffy. I was feeling exhausted after my workouts. So I was like, okay, something is going on. And I felt that at my age, I was a little too young to have perimenopause. So then I was like, all right, I heard about this thyroid thing. Let me go to a doctor and check it out. Now, I don't know if I spoke about this before, but I didn't want to go to an allopathic doctor, like a regular, conventional doctor, just because from what I heard, they don't do a thorough thyroid test. Like,
Right.
if you're the baseline, you're okay. There's nothing wrong with you. But I knew better. So I went to a functional medicine doctor and got the thorough thyroid panel done. And he basically said, you have adrenal fatigue. And, the symptoms that, showed up in my life, like for the longest time, was low blood sugar. So I would faint. I would, get dizzy after, standing up. And doctors took, the test, and they're like, you have low blood sugar. Nothing. I'm like, okay. And then low blood pressure. So all of that is low. So what ends up happening is when you're stressing out your body, and my doctor told me this, like, you have these reserves. Your adrenals basically they're small glands that sit on your kidneys, right? And they're in the upper abdomen. And what happens is when you get that stress, your thyroid, and you get low thyroid, and then what happens is you're stressing out your adrenals. And then it's just basically depleting your adrenals. And your adrenals are there to kind of keep you like energy and all of that stuff. So I was depleting everything. And not only was it because of the stress, it was because I thought, doing hard workouts, high intensity, was good, was supposed to relieve your stress, right? If you do hard and high intensity workouts while you're going through this, it's actually stressing your body even more. And that's why I was exhausted. So that is why when you get stressed out, chronic stress. Now, I'm not saying, like the acute stresses that you can, have every now and then, but if you have chronic stress day in and day out, and this has to do not only physically, what you're doing to your body, but mentally, what you're telling yourself. And that's why we were talking. What you say to yourself is, what ends up happening as far as actions go. So it really depleted my body, and to where I literally had to get off of caffeine, and I'm still off of caffeine. I, had to change my diet. I was on this other diet that it was so stupid. I was on that carnivore diet.
Yeah.
Oh.
It was stupid. It was like one of these things that I said, somebody on Instagram, was a lady, oh yeah, it cured my bloatedness or something like that, my IBS. And I'm like, oh, well, I'm bloated. Maybe I can try that. It was stupid. Anyway, so the reason why I say that is because I was the nutrients, that I needed in my body that I actually wasn't digesting either.
Right.
So your digestion, when you're stressed, obviously is not going to be on point because you're eating quickly. You're not, being mindful of what you're eating. So I was always eating in front of a, computer, stressed out because my job was stressful, yada, yada, yada. So your digestion is not as poor. And so then I had to get, digestive enzymes and, all of this stuff. And finally, I was great afterward. So what ends up happening is your stress levels can affect, and does affect, if it's chronic stress and don't get it, checked out, can distract your hormones. So your thyroid, your adrenals, all of those, it definitely takes a toll on them.
So were you diagnosed with hypothyroidism at all, or?
So I wasn't per se, but it does go hand in hand because your thyroid and your adrenals are like brother and sister glands.
Yeah.
So if you have hypothyroidism, you for sure have adrenal fatigue.
I better go get checked out.
And then even worse, adrenal. So there's adrenal fatigue and adrenal insufficiency. And so again, if you don't get that adrenal fatigue checked out, chronic adrenal fatigue can lead into adrenal insufficiency, which I don't know if you guys have heard or maybe researched. There's a thing called Addison's disease. And that is where, again, if it's chronic, it can get to that point to where you're just laying on the floor. You have nothing. I mean, you have nothing in you. So
yeah, I'm kind of there. I'm kind of there, and I have been taking levothyroxine for probably 20 years. I mean, okay. I quit taking it for about a year and a half, 2 years. I mean, I just quit taking all of my medication, and then I lost a bunch of weight, and I don't know how. Well, I do. I wasn't eating junk, as much junk anyway. I was eating some, but yeah. And then I started taking it again, and I don't know. I am just exhausted all the time. I don't feel well physically. I just feel it's just we're kind of going through a hard time, staying on our diet. We tried to start eating plant-based and trying to get back into that mode. It's like, we had one bad day and then it led to another one and another one. And it's like, oh, forget it. Throwing in the towel. I mean, we can't get back on it. So, but I am definitely tired. I'm thinking I may need to go do the.
You do need to do that test. I recommend for anybody, really, even a checkup kind of thing, because you don't know.
Yeah.
And I never knew that I had no vitamin B in me, none. So it was, obviously digestion and everything. So yeah, get that thyroid, test and the full thyroid test.
Okay.
Because that'll go through. I forgot what, I'm not a practitioner, so I don't know exactly. The difference of what they leave out. All I know is that there are certain things that kind of go deeper into your thyroid and checks a little bit more in the full thyroid panel.
Okay, I'm gonna have to do that. That's on my list. I'm putting it at top.
Okay.
Yes, do that. And just if you can't see a functional medicine doctor, that's fine. You can actually do it at home. But, there are, I don't know, offhand, the best, companies out there that do this. I know that there are some that are safe, that are very thorough. And I think once you get that done, you definitely have to have it kind of, go through with like a practitioner or somebody. Even, I do it too. It's a health coach. Kind of, walk through of what each thing means.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Well, I'm doing it. I need to.
Do it.
Don't laugh. What are you laughing at?
No, that's good. You need to.
I do.
Yeah, and that's a good baseline. It's understanding what is off. I mean, you could be, either estrogen dominant and you don't know that. You could, again, have all of these vitamins that you think that you're getting because you're plant-based and you're not. Your digestion could be off. So a lot of things that, we think that, or we take for granted, we don't know. I think this test will definitely open your eyes and tell you.
Okay. Awesome.
All right. Well, good. Well, I know we've run way over, Elizabeth. Thank you so much.
Oh my gosh!
But we did talk about this all day.
Yeah, so. I know. I was going to say we. That's why we have had you back on again, because I think we bumped up against some time last time. A couple things before we let you go. We didn't really get the particulars. So, Terry told me that you had somebody on a special guest on one of your recent shows that we may know from a commercial that's out there.
Yes. Yeah. So it's next Thursday it's going to be released. So
okay.
DC Glenn So he is the second half of the duo group tag team. I don't know if you guys know, back in the 90s, Whoop, There It Is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, he's back, and they're back for that Geico commercial, Scoop, There It Is.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I love that.
Oh, he starts
Yeah,
dancing every time.
yes, that commercial gets you, and it got me. And so he's doing his rounds only because, he has a great, like, thinking. He's very inspirational.
Okay, cool.
I mean, I couldn't stop listening to him. He basically talked throughout the whole thing because it was very inspirational, of, like, kind of like a do it attitude.
Yeah.
Like, you can go through, do it yourself. You can go through any adversity and get out the other side.
Yeah.
So it's very inspirational. And obviously what him and his partner is doing. Yeah. So thank you for bringing that up. So June 3rd, which is Thursday, it will be released. So
Okay, cool. Yeah, we can't either.
Oh my gosh, I'm ready.
Yes.
And you are also, I think this has been a little bit back in time, but you talked with one of our friends as well, Dr. Carol.
Dr. Carol
Yes.
Sherry.
Yes, she was a delight. I loved talking with her. Her knowledge, and we actually, kind of had a great conversation, obviously, because we're under the same functional medicine paradigm, right? So it was, like I said, I can talk about this all day. And so, yeah, it was a great conversation. I think that's going to be released a few weeks. I don't know off the top of my head right now, but it is going to be released in June.
Okay.
Well, and she's such an inspiration, just to hear about her comeback, being diagnosed with a brain tumor and having to relearn everything, being in a wheelchair. And she said she aged before her time. When she was 50, she found out what it was like to be 80, She's an inspiration.
And again, that's the adversity that we have to think about when we do go through our own stuff. And it's not to say that our own stuff isn't, that we shouldn't care about it.
Right.
But I think, understanding the adversity and the, that people go through, and how resilient we all are. I mean, we can, and it's just how you think about things.
And sharing and just being able to be inspired by other people's stories and knowing that you're not alone in this,
Right.
That's a big thing.
All right. Well, before we get out of here, tell us also, what is a habit or tool, something that you've been using here lately that's really helped add value to your life, professional or personal, either one?
Sitting on this bouncy ball.
Okay.
Oh, does it help with your posture?
It helps with my posture. Yes. And it's not one of those, because I know they have one of those to where it has a seat, and but this is an actual one that you can exercise. And I had it a long time ago, and I'm creating this office space and everything. And I gave my husband the chair that I actually ordered for myself. I'm like, let me see if I can use this. Yeah. And I love it. I just, I dance, like when I do my work, I've had my music on and I'm dancing around, and you're moving.
Yeah.
So that's something that's actually helped me kind of get through the day.
Yeah, because I actually did that. It's been years ago, but it actually helps your core and your balance. But I will say, if you're not careful, you will get bucked off every now and then.
Sometimes I'm like this, I go like this, and I roll off. I'm like, oh, that's not good.
Yeah. Right.
Maybe we can is there a frame that you can put underneath it so it won't slip out from under you, maybe?
If you do, then you don't roll. It's like it stays put.
Yeah.
And you don't get the roll. So.
Yeah.
You just have to be careful. That's all.
All right. Well, Elizabeth,
awesome.
Tell everybody, of course, how can they reach out to you? And then, who do you like to work with? What can you do for them? How they can reach out? But also tell us about the podcast, how they can find the podcast.
Yes. Well, the podcast is The Root of Our Health. And, the audience really is women over 40. But I do have topics that anybody can listen to, men, women, of any age. But there are some topics that, menopause, that we speak about a lot, and just in general for women over 40. So it's an alternative health and wellness, because that's, who who I am and what I love to do. So that's the podcast, and they can get that, Spotify, iTunes, Stitcher, I believe it's on. So yeah, and my website. So you can also get my podcast on my website, which is elizabethdcristofano.com. And so that's my website, and my Instagram is elizabeth.dcristofano. That's the handle.
Okay.
The other place I live on is LinkedIn. So if you find me with my first and last name, you could pull me up.
Okay. Yeah, we'll be sure to include all that in the show,
yeah.
the spelling in the show notes for them as well.
Yeah.
All right. Well, as usual, I'm going to thank both of you ladies for bringing me back here. I feel much better.
Do you feel relieved?
Yeah, I feel like the pressure's gone. We can reboot this day and
That's
get
right.
on with it and have a good day.
We're having a good day. Good weekend.
Yeah.
Good long weekend.
Yeah.
Long, yes. Memorial
Yay.
weekend.
Yeah.
No holiday. Yes.
All right. Well, yep. Y'all have a good weekend there where you're at as well. And we appreciate you being back on. So
yeah, thank you, Elizabeth. As always, it's a pleasure.
Yeah. So that's going to do it for another episode of Feeding Fatty. Of course, you can find us at www.feedingfatty.com. We are also on all the major podcast platforms, iTunes, Stitcher, Google, Spotify. We are also, a video of this interview will go up on YouTube as well. And you can find us on all the major social media platforms. So until next time, take care of yourself and take care of your health.
Bye-bye.